Hey guys, it's Tony with another edition of the Movie Mouth. Today we're going to be talking about Daredevil Season 3. I know I'm usually review movies on this channel and specifically this series, but Netflix has been releasing some awesome shows lately and I've diverted my attention to watching those. Daredevil Season 3 dropped in mid-October and I just now finished it. Um, so today we're going to be discussing season 3, but we're also going to be bringing up previous 2 seasons, the other Marvel Netflix shows, and a few other things as well. We're just going to be talking in general about it. It's just me today, so it's not really going to be a discussion, but it's also going to be a little bit more than a review. So, um, if you haven't watched any of the Marvel Netflix shows, Daredevil is definitely the cream of the crop. Doesn't really get better than that. And we briefly discussed it on our Nerdy and 30 podcast when we talked all things MCU. We brought up the Netflix shows briefly. Um, but Daredevil is probably the best superhero show I have ever seen and has ever been made. TV show. Uh, the other Marvel Netflix shows aren't great. Um, I think The Punisher is solid. I think the first half of Luke Cage is pretty good, and then the second half petered off. Jessica Jones was alright, even though the lead actress is kind of annoying to me, and her character is a little annoying in general. And Iron Fist was absolute garbage. I didn't see season 2 of those three. When I say those three, I mean Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. Punisher only has one season. But as far as Daredevil is concerned, it is by far the best of those 5 shows. They're on season 3, obviously, right now. And the first season, I guess I'm going to get a little bit into spoiler territory for the first 2 seasons, but I'm definitely going to get into spoilers for season 3 as well. The first season showed an origin of Daredevil. Obviously, it needed to do that, and an origin for his arch nemesis, Kingpin, as well. Um, and then season 2 introduced the Punisher and Elektra, and went through their struggles with Frank Castle, but also with the Hand. They kind of combine those into one. Um, and then season 3 delves back into the life of Kingpin, even though Kingpin was in season 2, but he wasn't really the focal point. He becomes the focal point once again in season 3, and they introduce Bullseye as well. So, I'll start discussing season 3, but I'm going to keep comparing it. It's hard not to compare it to the previous seasons. A lot of people are saying this is the best season overall, and I think I disagree. So we'll get into that. Season 3 starts off with Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, striking a deal with the FBI in exchange for information on his rivals. So he gets out of prison, and with Daredevil, it leaves off after the end of the Defenders. If you haven't seen the Defenders, probably be a little confused at the beginning of this season. At the end of the Defenders, they were fighting the Hand, and Elektra was killed, and Daredevil was stuck in a building with her, and basically the building fell on him. Well, the beginning of the first episode shows how Matt Murdock gets out of that alive, but he doesn't tell anyone else he's alive. He returns to the church that he grew up in. This season follows the Born Again story arc. I'm a huge comic guy, and I love Daredevil, and probably a fifth of my comics are Daredevil related, either him as the main storyline or as a side character. He's in a lot of Punisher comics and so on and so forth. He's in Civil War, the comic, even though he's not in Civil War, the movie, but he should have been. And Born Again is probably the best Daredevil story arc graphic novel issues there is. It's it's fantastic. So, and this follows it pretty accurately. I mean, Born Again was kind of its own thing, but it was tied to previous Daredevil lore, and this kind of is the same way. They made some changes to the story, obviously for creative reasons and continuity reasons, but it's pretty good. I mean, so Daredevil, he goes back to the church that he grew up in. He starts um, getting back into his life. He's angry. He hears that Kingpin's out, and he's questioning his faith. He's questioning the reason why he's doing everything, questioning if it's working, questioning everything, and stays away from his friends Karen and Foggy. Um, but the show starts slow and builds storyline slowly. Some of the reviews I read said that the first half was boring and the second half, redeemed itself. I actually felt the opposite. I liked how this season built slowly. It built the tension slowly over the first 9 episodes, basically. And um, even though I've read Born Again several times, I knew exactly what was going to happen. And frankly, everybody kind of knows what's going to happen. I mean, or you should at least think that Daredevil's not going to die. But I like to see when shows throw curveballs. This season didn't really. So one of the FBI agents assigned to Wilson Fisk's detail when he gets released from prison is Special Agent Poindexter, and they call him Dex, who is Bullseye in the comics. They really go into his backstory and his child life. Um, I don't know if it's an attempt, if it's just a backstory. I feel like they're kind of trying to make you feel bad for him, but at the same time, they really show you how much of a sociopath he is. He definitely is in the comics, and he comes across as a complete sociopath in the show. Some guy that you could definitely see, you know, committing a mass shooting or something like that. And the actor that plays him did a pretty good job. Definitely better than Colin Farrell in the movie. But I think just about everyone in the show does a better performance than anybody in that movie. Um, uh, Daredevil does a great job. Charlie Cox plays him fantastic as usual. Vincent D'Onofrio is perfect as Kingpin. Not to mention in prior seasons you had John Berthnell, who's born to play the Punisher. The woman who played Elektra, she was okay. And I feel I know the actor's name, but it's escaping me right now. But the guy who plays Foggy, seen him in a few movies. He's absolutely perfect as Foggy. Karen Page is great as well. Um, and a lot of the supporting characters and the whole series, not just this season, have been great. I could think of the father and um, just a lot of Melvin Potter, who's in season 1. I don't remember if he was in season 2, but he's in this season as well. In the comics, he's known as the Gladiator. He's kind of a Daredevil, on again, off again villain, sort of, kind of like a Catwoman to a Batman, and not that they're romantically involved, obviously, but that sometimes they fight, sometimes they don't. Now, Melvin Powder is accurate to the comics, and there's a scene in season 3 where they fight, and Melvin Powder's using um, like a saw blade, and that's kind of paying homage to the comics, and that was good to see because they had not fought prior. And Melvin Powder is a good character in the comics, I feel like. So, and he doesn't get a lot of screen time in the show, so I was definitely looking forward to that. Um, there, Wilson Fisk's plot in this season to get back at everyone and become the Kingpin of New York is intricate, well planned out, and I feel like some of it's luck, but he adapts, and I don't want to get into every nuance of his plot. Um, but I felt it was good. It was good to see something like this. It reminded me of season one. Season one, I felt like was a little better because they really played to the mystery of Wilson Fisk, and they delved into his childhood a little bit and stuff like that. This, um, I don't know. It wasn't. They were spending a lot of time on Bullseye, and Fisk just gets a little tired when he's talking about Vanessa. It's like we get it. You love her, and in season one, before he met Vanessa, he was more motivated by becoming, the kingpin of New York. In this, it's like the becoming the kingpin of New York is like a side note to him. It's more just Vanessa, Vanessa, Vanessa. We get it, we get it. It's like stop, okay, and um, Bullseye doesn't really. I mean, he has motivation, but it's almost a motivation just to stay sane and to stop himself from becoming what he was born to become, in that a mass murderer. Um, and Fisk kind of gives him that opportunity. Season three, I feel like kind of teetered off a little bit, starting in episode 9. Prior to that, there's a prison sequence where Matt steals Foggy's bar ID and gets into prison to speak to an Albanian prison mate to get information on Fisk and his escape from that prison. It's another long take. A lot of these shows and movies lately have been doing these long takes, kind of like Birdman. There was a long take like that in The Haunting of Hill House. Sometimes, most of the time, it's good. This one was pretty good. That whole sequence of him escaping from that prison is pretty awesome. It's probably the best sequence in the entire season. But once they get to episode 9, they start talking about Karen's backstory. It really starts to teeter off. It's like I I ended up watching the end in like one night, but it was more out of just wanting to get it out of the way than actually being excited about it. It kind of became cartoonish. There are two really, really bad parts in this season that stuck out to me. One is, spoiler alert, I guess, not that I haven't gone into it already, is Maggie, the sister, who takes care of Matt. You find out that that's his mother, and um, once Matt finds out that she's his mother, he leaves, and she goes to the bed that he was staying at in the basement of the church, and she attempts to cry, but you can tell that either she did a really bad job in that scene, or she's not good at crying as an actress. I actually thought she did a pretty good job prior to that in the season, so I was really shocked to see how bad she was in that scene. It was really hard. Um it was hard to watch. It was really bad. And another scene, not to mention, if I talk about that, there's a flashback of showing Matt's parents meeting. So Sister Maggie and his father Jack at like a boxing match, and he's probably 40 in that scene. The actor, I don't know if he's meant to be 40, but the actress playing Sister Maggie walks in. She looks 12. It's it's hard. That's hard to watch as well because it definitely doesn't even look legal when they get together. Anyways, there's another really bad part, and unfortunately, the second hard part to watch in the series is literally the last scene of the season. In that, in the final fight between it's a threesome fight. They're all fighting each other between Kingpin, Bullseye, and Daredevil. Daredevil kind of turns Bullseye against Kingpin, so he goes to attack him, but he's fighting Daredevil as well. And Kingpin picks up Bullseye and breaks his back on the wall. So at the very end of the show, they show them doing surgery on Poindexter. And in the comics, there's a famous issue where Bullseye kills Elektra, and then Daredevil essentially just lets him fall but doesn't save. Or no, I think it was Bullseye. Daredevil went to go save Bullseye, but Bullseye didn't want Daredevil to help him, and then he fell and broke his back, and they end up installing adamantium in his um, vertebrae back because Marvel and Disney don't own 20th Century Fox just yet. They couldn't mention adamantium because it's owned by the X-Men and 20th Century Fox. So I wonder after the acquisition deal if there is a season 4. I don't know because they're canceling Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, which I think should have been canceled, but they haven't canceled Daredevil yet or the Punisher. So if once Disney buys Fox and they release their own streaming service late next year, if they're going to be coming out with future seasons of Daredevil and Punisher, but if they come out with a new season after they own Fox, maybe they can mention adamantium, and they can bring Spider-Man in maybe, but I doubt that. But that scene where they're doing surgery on Bullseye, there's this corny scene at the end of it where they do a close-up on Poindexter's face and you see a bullseye in his eye. It looked like something out of a B movie, or one of the crappy comic book movies of the early 2000s, like Elektra or Daredevil, for that matter. It was awful, and the first 9 episodes of the season were awesome, and it just really teared off to the end. And people are saying that it's better. The second half was better than the first half, which I completely disagree with. And they were saying this is the best season by far, which I think season 1 is still the best. Season 2 was better than what people say, but I think because this is an ultra realistic show, kind of like they're kind of going Christopher Nolan Dark Knight esque show. They're trying to really make Daredevil real and relatable. When you go into story arcs with the Hand, who not only are ninjas but supernatural ninjas, they have powers of resurrecting the dead and stuff. I think that kind of went over the head of a lot of people. That with the Defenders and Iron Fist fights the Hand, and I mean the comics, the Hand is prevalent in a lot of story arcs. I mean Wolverine fights the Hand a lot too, but I don't think people like the Hand as much, and I don't either. I like Daredevil fighting, realistic crime bosses and stuff like that. I'd really like to see his friends being brought in more, like Spider-Man, but I know that'll never happen. But so I mean, I kind of compare Daredevil to Batman. It's kind of hard not to. There's two people in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or just Marvel in general, that you can compare to Batman. That's Iron Man and Batman. You can compare for obvious reasons, but Daredevil's kind of like Batman, but I think his motivations are a little bit better than Batman. I don't know if his character is better than Batman, but I mean, he has a code, and he fights crime. He doesn't kill anyone, and other reasons as well. Daredevil was essentially an orphan. His parents were killed, even though his mother wasn't killed, but he didn't know that. And other reasons as well. And fighting crime, he's a detective. He goes out at night, and he's climbing all over buildings. He doesn't really have powers. Batman doesn't either. I mean, I guess you could say his heightened hearing is a power like sonar, but I mean, it's not technically. Um, I think Daredevil has better motivation because, I mean, Batman's fighting for Gotham, but Batman never really lived in the streets of Gotham. He was in high society. He's more fighting crime in Gotham because it ended up affecting his family. Before it affected his family, he didn't really care, but I guess he was a kid as well. But Daredevil is trying to protect his neighborhood. I guess it affected him as well once it killed his family, but um, because Daredevil doesn't really have anything because he's poor, I feel like he has more of a connection with the people in the neighborhood and feeling bad for the poor and helping them out in both aspects. I feel like that dynamic is really cool with Daredevil in that he helps his neighborhood both as Matt Murdock and Daredevil, as a lawyer and a crime fighter. Whereas Batman, I mean, Bruce Wayne doesn't, a lot of times he's just putting on an act, but he doesn't end up helping people as Bruce Wayne. I don't know if he does that to try and keep a low profile, but he could help his city more as Bruce Wayne than he actually does. And then I get to the code. Batman's code of not killing. I mean, it's basically only a code because his parents were killed. I feel like Daredevil's is more, um, you know, it's more realistic for his character because he's a hardcore Catholic, and thou shalt not kill is a commandment. So he feels he'd be betraying God if he kills. On top of the fact that he believes, well, prior to season 3, he believes in the judicial system, so he doesn't necessarily want these criminals to be killed. He wants them to be prosecuted by law. He just suits up as Daredevil to, catch them. Um, in season 3 and in the Born Again story arc, he, becomes a little jaded, thinking that, Fisk is above the law, and he essentially is. So, I I like Daredevil's Matt Murdock's personality and motivations and story arcs a lot. I like him almost as much as Batman, if not sometimes more than Batman, and he's definitely a better character than Iron Man. So, and they're all kind of similar. None of them have any powers. I mean, I guess Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne are both rich, but they both have similar motivations and stuff like that. So, I mean, overall, it's a good season. It's probably better than the second one. Um, but I don't know if I'd rewatch this season. I feel like if I would rewatch the first season because it's the best season, and I might rewatch the second season specifically for the Daredevil Punisher dynamic. I like seeing them two together because they're in the comics a lot. I don't know if there's a lot for me to want to watch in this season. Um, I don't know. They paid homage to a lot of smaller things in the comic, like there's a hard Karen gets into like hard drugs and I think is a prostitute and Born Again. And here they don't do the prostitute aspect, which I'm glad they didn't, but they kind of, pay homage to the drug aspect and her background with her family as well. And it was actually pretty good when Karen ends up having basically her own little episode, which, I mean, it was good to find out what happened. But I feel like they could have did it in little chunks, spread out. Having almost an entire episode devoted to her backstory was kind of boring. I don't really care as much. Makes me feel bad for her character, but I don't know. But it was a good season overall. It's a great show overall. I hope that when the Disney Fox merger goes through and they get their own streaming service and all the Disney stuff and Marvel stuff, Star Wars stuff and all that gets pulled off of Netflix, that they renew Daredevil for season 4 because I think it deserves it. Punisher deserves a season 2, but of the 5 Marvel shows on Netflix, this one deserves to continue more than any of them. It's just they've kind of covered a lot of Daredevil's bad guys. And his famous story arcs. So I don't know where they're gonna go from here. I mean, they could do a lot of things with Daredevil as in criminals, like Batman fighting various criminals. But as far as Daredevil bad guys, iconic bad guys, there's not a lot. I mean, they kind of introduce Poindexter as the official Bullseye at the end of the show. So Bullseye would be in the next season, but um, Bullseye by himself without anybody else might be kind of boring. They would need to bring somebody else in. I guess, Melvin Powder's still there. Kingpin would still be in prison, but, Punisher, I guess, could come back, but Elektra's gone. So I don't know how they would do it. But, I mean, overall, I mean, it's kind of hard to give TV show seasons a rating out of 10. So I'm probably not going to do it. The other TV show that I reviewed was a travel show, so that would have been impossible to give a rating because it's a reality TV. But this, I mean, the first half, maybe I'll do it. Maybe the first half of the season, I'd probably give a 9 out of 10. The second half, maybe like a 7 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10. I don't want to say second half, last quarter of the season. So, but it's definitely worth a watch if you're a huge Marvel fan or a huge Daredevil fan in general. So, all right, guys, I know this is a little bit longer than normal, but it's a lot to go through with these TV shows because it's not just an hour and a half to 2 hour long movie. It's a 10 hour, or Daredevil was a 13-hour season. So, but if you like what you hear, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. All right.